You're listening to The Odd Couple with Lori Ross and Vikram Diol.
Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may be. Let's talk about sex. Let's talk about sex. Let's talk about sex. Let's talk about sex.
It's Vikram Diol and my co-host Lori Ross, and we are The Odd Couple.
Welcome, everybody. We have a really exciting topic. I don't know. It just kind of came to me, and I want to talk about it. And what are we going to talk about today? Dun, dun,
we have an exciting topic?
You know what? Shut up. You be nice to me.
I'm a little grumpy, I'm not going to lie, but I feel like...
That's okay. I'll hold the space for both of us.
Part of life.
That's it. No, it is part of life. I think I just read a quote right before the show that says if you're trying to be positive, you're not really being authentic. You're acknowledging that there is a negative side, but you want to surround yourself in kind of this veneer of positivity and not just trying to be positive. So really just kind of embodying the positivity. But shoot, I get grumpy all the time. It's the side I don't show people. I usually stay home when I'm grumpy. So kudos to you for sticking to doing a podcast with me, even though you're not in the most positive mood. So that's okay. We'll balance each other out. That's what we do here. I wanted to talk, I didn't know if you were still okay with talking about it, but I want to talk about sex and sexual energy and how to use it and how powerful it is and why it's so taboo for some people, or how you were raised that it's a bad thing, but it really is this wonderful thing that we have and that we can utilize, especially in business. That's what we're talking about for business, but in life. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, please.
More.
Morning, breakfast, lunch. I think instead of having 3 meals a day, we should have 3 sexual encounters every day. People would be a lot happier.
I don't know. I think I would be a little sore.
That goes both ways.
It does. Well, that's good to know. No, my poor husband, I don't know if he could do that, and I don't know if I could do that. But I know that once I gained control of sexual energy, I was able to use it to my benefit. And so what that looked like for me was I was able to eat better. I was able to work out more. I was able to create, because that's really what that energy comes to. It comes to creation. That's why we come together physically. And I want to kind of preface this too by talking about, I'm not talking about just the physical act of sex, but that's
what
that's definitely part of what we're going to talk about today, but just sexual energy in general. And I know that you've read a lot about it and how to use it for just to kind of motivate yourself and to grow and create. So I'd like you to kind of talk about that a little bit if you could.
Well, as a young child, I used to read a lot of Playboy magazines because the articles in them were amazing.
Oh, no.
I don't know if I've read a lot about it, but I do know that it is a creative force, and when used appropriately, it can be a great release of energy, but it can also be a great way to express energy and to create and to...
Well, I remember, I think you mentioned it while we were out with a mutual friend, is actually kind of getting up to the build-up point, and instead of just releasing, actually taking that pressurized energy and using it for other things. I don't know if you remember that conversation or if you even want to talk about that.
No, so in Think and Grow Rich, it's actually chapter 11 from Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. He talks about the transmutation of sexual energy. Instead of using that energy to actually engage in the physical of sex, you use that energy and you let it build up and you let it build up, and you use that energy to find a life form and to become creative. And to me, it's if you think about sports event, the coach will tell the players, refrain from having sexual activity the night before, because you don't want to lose that momentum that your body's naturally creating for you. So when you learn how to control that, because the sexual force is one of the highest driving forces out there when it comes to motivation. I mean, I know that when I was younger, I wanted to go to the gym so I could get more girls. I didn't want to go to the gym because I wanted to play football. I didn't care about football. I didn't want to go to the gym to become stronger so I could get it, into a fight with somebody. I wanted to go to the gym so I looked better naked. And that was my only motivation, was to get girls. It had nothing to do with health or wellness when I was younger. As I get older now, going to the gym's all about the energy that I can get out of it and the longevity I have in life. But when I was younger, it was all about that sexual drive. And that's what was really the transmutation of young Vikram to older Vikram is now it's don't use that pent up energy for sexual release in a physical form. Use that pent up energy for sexual creation in a business form or in an interpersonal relationship with somebody, or to really kind of drive me to the next level.
I like the sound effect there.
Yeah, I thought that was well placed.
Well, and you see it too. Like I know that when I have a buildup of sexual energy, I'm motivated to be more healthy. So I'll start running and I'll start working out, and you want to be able to still be attractive because in nature, what are we drawn to, right? We're drawn to the most attractive things. That's what nature does. That's how nature lures in its animals to eat from its juicy fruit trees so it can spread its seed. That's how it works. That's how we work too. We're no different from that. I just enjoy it, and I've been married for a really long time, and I know that a lot of people in marriages they kind of lose that creative energy. When I work on a lot of clients energetically, when I'm feeling their different chakras, and if you guys don't know what those are the energy centers in our body. And there's different main actual centers, and I'm talking about the sacral. For a lot of women that, and I hate to say this, but I get these visions when I put my hands on people and I see cobwebs in that sacral area. And that tells me that they're not having sex and they're not creating. So, and not that you have to have sex, but you have to maintain that sexual energy because we are human beings. We are creators. That's what we're here for. We're here to create. It's really important if you're not getting it from a partner to really do it to yourself, just to kind of get that energy flowing again. I don't know if you knew that, but like you can feel it on people too when they're not having sex.
Is this the right time to insert my phone number?
Oh gosh. Oh, that's right. So Vikram is single, everyone. Ready to mingle.
So I have a lot of sexual energy. In the Indian culture, it's taboo. You don't talk about it. You don't bring it up. It's, you hide it under the rug, and it's something that should be spoken more freely about. However, it's not. There's a lot of different reasons why. It's just culturally, in my culture, we don't talk about sex. We don't talk about the feeling of sex. We don't talk about, I don't know if I actually ever talked about the birds and the bees with my parents. You don't talk about dating. I mean, if you talk to a girl, she should be your wife, and you should, that's it. We don't get to talk about it in a healthy way. So then you end up learning about the energy of sex or the drive of sex from your friends who have no idea what they're talking about, or from the internet, which is really not probably what you're going to want to teach, about sexual energy from. The challenge is that, and I don't know if it's just in my culture or if it's in the US, the challenge to me is, how do you get people to realize that there is a lot of power behind sex in a good way and a bad way, and that it
depends on how out of balance you are, because you can become addicted to it as well. And so that's when it becomes that's when you're a slave to it as opposed to you being in control of it.
I totally agree.
But my parents didn't talk about it either, and I was the only girl. And they only started really monitoring me when I turned 16, and boys started being attracted to me, and they're like, "Oh no, you can't do that." And I was like, "What are you talking about? You didn't explain anything to me."
The challenge is that because it's considered a taboo topic, we don't actually talk about the song, "Let's Talk About Sex, Baby," all the good things and the bad things. There's a lot of great things that come from sex. I mean, we're all here because somebody had sex. And so if we didn't have sex, it would be bad. But, you can get sexual tension. You get really frustrated. And when you get frustrated, you get angry. And maybe that anger, instead of you squeezing and squashing it and pushing it down, maybe you use that anger to go out there and say, you know what, now's the time that I'm going to start that side project. Now's the time that I'm going to start that side hustle. Maybe you wake up a little bit earlier in the morning, you start going to the gym, and you use some of that frustration in a positive way. So instead of using it as I'm sexually frustrated and angry, if you think about it differently, that energy is really all it is, because everything we do is an energy. So that energy that you have can be applied to something different, and that could help you get over a hurdle that you've been having in life, because when a car starts, it starts with an explosion. And that explosion is what gets the engine revving and getting it moving. And so you need that explosion sometimes. And so, we were talking about this, I don't know, yesterday or the other day, but anger isn't a bad thing either. And it's just how we express it. So we have to really learn how to express things which make it good or bad. So you can be happy person, but you can get angry. And for me, I was always told, don't get angry. You got to control your anger. Like I can remember cards from my dad where he's like, you're such an amazing kid. You just got to learn how to control your anger. So I always thought of anger as a negative, whereas it wasn't a negative. It was just I didn't know how to control that and to make it a positive spurt. So when I would get angry, I would lash out.
Well, and I think you and I talked about how anger is a secondary emotion. So if you knew that you were getting angry, you didn't have the ability to say, okay, well, I'm angry, but what's the root behind that so I can actually tend to that? But being angry, I think a lot of people need to be angry. So many people stuff it down. And a lot of men, too, are kind of shown that that's kind of a primary response to things as opposed to actually taking the moment to see what the root underneath that anger is. At least that's been my experience. I have a husband that has a former he's a recovering angry man. Had to watch him learn how to not control it, but learn that maybe it doesn't need to build up so much and how to have other outlets to release. And sexual energy was one big thing we used. That's why we have so many children in the beginning of our relationship, to release that.
Your kids are going to love listening to
I
your
know.
podcast.
I'm like, oh, geez.
They'll be like, so you guys are angry and you had sex and then we showed up. Oh, all right.
It's like,
This opens
oh,
up a
forgot
couple.
to take the pill today. I told Vikram I was in a weird mood when we started, so this is
I
a
told her I was angry.
he's grumpy.
I guess
And
this is what happens when we have pent up sexual energy and weird moods.
So I like to kind of talk a little bit about how if someone's kind of been shut down and turned off for so long with this sexual energy, a lot of women in particular, that they're not utilizing that womb, that creative energy. So what do you recommend for somebody that needs to be turned on, literally and figuratively? You can speak for guys. How's that?
Well, I can't speak for men in general. I can speak for myself.
Okay,
I can try to generalize it. What
turns you on? How's that?
Oh boy, I'm easy. I'm easy to be turned on. I like to be fed. I like my behind my ears to be rubbed. I like my chest and stomach to be rubbed. Right? I mean, I'm simple. And tell me that I'm awesome. And there we go, ready to rock and roll, baby. My engines are firing.
I know, and I'm so different. I get turned on when my husband does the dishes or does yard work.
One of the problems that I see, not in everybody, but I'm talking in relationships that are not living up to their potential, and a lot of people who appear happy in restaurants are really not outside of the restaurant. There's this big front, and there's a lot of shame that comes around human sexuality in the United States. I don't know what it's like in other countries because I've never lived there, but in the U.S., there's a lot of shame that comes around it. So people tend to not talk about it. Sometimes sex is held hostage. I don't get what I want, then I'm not going to give you what you want. And so we end up using sex as a form of punishment or a form of reward. And that's really fucked up. We're hurting ourselves. We're hurting our relationships. Tend to all crave it, but you just start learning to live with it. I mean, I was married for a while and we didn't sleep in the same room. So you can talk about how much fun we were having. And I just didn't want to do it. She didn't want to do it. We would do it once in a while and it was like we had to do it. I was like, okay, it's the 31st, so we're going to go in and take care of business. And it was like a chore. It wasn't fun. It wasn't enjoyable. And then after a while, we just stopped even doing that. So I feel that from what I've seen in my experiences and my understanding is that it's not fair for us to use sex as a punishment or a reward system. It's something that we should use and talk about more freely. But I know that men don't take care of things that make women excited, like taking out the trash.
Well, and like I said, I don't want to speak for all women, but I think in general, women are turned on so differently than men.
I think it's important for women to explain to men what they really want.
Oh, I'm
Like,
good. I'm
hey,
really good at that.
Yeah, most aren't. Most don't. They don't want to talk about what they really want. They expect us to know what they want because their girlfriends know, but their girlfriends aren't men. So if they had more men friends, they would know that we just need really explicit. We're like dogs. We're really simple. Scratch my ear, my leg starts shaking. And I get excited. I'm like, ooh, wow, I feel great, But if you want certain things done that's going to make you happy, you should ask for it. There's actually 2 tests. We'll put these in the show notes. I think that every human being should do it. One is the 5 love languages, and you should do this if you have a partner with your partner, and you guys should really create an open environment for communication because the 5 love languages tell you how you guys like to receive love. And what happens is if I like words of affirmation and gifts, my wife likes acts of service and a different one of the languages. And all I do is buy her gifts and she gives me nothing to her, then I'm going to feel like I'm working really hard to please her. And she's going to feel like she's working really hard to please me, but yet neither one of our love tanks are going to be filled back up. So we're both going to be walking around pissed off at each other thinking, God, he doesn't do anything for me, or she doesn't do anything for me, when we've done a lot for each other, but they're just not being received because of the way that they're being done.
Well, oh, go ahead.
Go for it. No, shoot.
Well, I just wanted to kind of give people what I just looked up the 5 love languages. And so gifts is one, quality time, words of affirmation, acts of service, and physical touch. And if you don't even take the quiz, I kind of was cued in by my husband because I'm not a gift giver. That is not my love language. I am definitely acts of service and maybe words of affirmation as well. But he's a gift giver. Like he would give me gifts and I wouldn't even know how to receive them because I was like, that's not my love language. Don't buy me stuff. He used to buy me really expensive stuff too. And I felt bad because we were just disconnecting instead of me accepting it and receiving it as a token of his love language. I definitely was like, no, I want you to do the dishes. I want you to do acts of service. And it took us 10 years to kind of figure that out. So he stopped buying me stuff, which is nice. Because if I want something, I'm just going to buy it myself. And, and I started buying him stuff because that was the way he knew that I cared about him.
And so it's important that that couples learn what the other person wants. That's what really matters, is that we learn what the other person wants so that we can have the other person's buckets being filled. Because I think most people that get together actually want to stay together. They start wanting to drift apart because they start feeling like they're not being taken care of. And then the other one that I really think is a great test to take is the Jaiya. It's the Jaiya sexual test, Jaiya. In both of these tests, it should take you less than 15 minutes to do them both. Maybe 20 minutes max. So it's not a huge time commitment. And the Jaiya sexual test talks about how you like to receive sex. Again, there's 5 energies that you can receive sex in. And some of the definitions are not exactly what you think they are. It's going back to learning what the other person wants, so that you guys can use that sexual energy as a way to create. And sometimes some of the best sexual energy is just innocent teasing. When you learn your partner's love languages, when you learn your partner's sexual energy, you don't even have to engage in sex. And that's when it becomes fun, because you know exactly what turns them on and tunes them up. And you get them revving, and you just start dropping seeds about like, hey, remember that project you wanted to do? Remember this? And they're like excited, they're motivated, and they go, boom, they take care of it. And then when they feel good and you feel good, then you guys bring that back into the bedroom and you guys can have a lot of passion, and then you can use that as a reward for, your work. But I'm not an expert in this. This is just kind of things that I do. And I know that there's times where I hold back on having sex because I know the next day I need to, I have a lot of stuff to do. So I don't want to have this is going to sound weird. God.
Spit it out.
But I'll actually, I'll take care of my partner, but I won't physically finish because it's not that I don't want to. It's just that I want to conserve my energy because I know the next day I have a big project. And so I'll let her have the pleasure and then I'll withhold it. And the next day, like I just jump out of bed and I'm like, let's go. And you take on the world because I have all that energy that I kept in for myself.
Well, you're spreading your seed in a different way, right? Because that's what you're doing. You're taking your energy and you're dispersing it. You're dispersing it to create it somewhere else. And I think that's That's a very evolved way of thinking. Think about that, because a lot of people don't have the control to be able to do that. I would love to meet other people that actually utilize that and control that. And if you have any comments on this show, please email us, because I want to learn more about this as well, because as a woman, as a receiver, it's different. We receive the energy, and if we intentionally understand that it's a release for that person, we have the ability to transmute that. So a lot of times if it was an anger release for my husband, I didn't know this at the time, but the womb and the sacral area actually acts as this transmutation system. And so we can get power from that and not only grow children, because I feel like that's kind of the womb gets the rap as growing humans, but that's not really what it's for. It's a metaphor and an actual center for power and transmutation of energy and creation. So we have I feel like men and women feel energy different sexually, but we both have the power to utilize it to create and spread our seed. Well, for men, spread the seed. And I think that's really brilliant that you do that. And I want to thank you for sharing that, because it might have been a little awkward and uncomfortable to share, but thank you. I think that's going to help a lot of people.
For me, I wasn't really we didn't talk about sex and we didn't talk about anger. It was just anger's bad and sex is, something you do when you're married. And it wasn't talked about. It wasn't discussed. It wasn't fair. And, one of the things too is that I don't know if this is a different topic or not, or if we can even get into it with a few minutes left. There's challenges that men and women both have when it comes to sex and anger. A lot of people think that a sexual advance is an aggressive move, and sometimes it is, and there are cases where it is 100%. But other times it's not, and it's just part of humans. It's just nice to have a dialogue around it where people know that if you spend time with a person and they start to respect you, they might actually become attracted to you because they've now created this energy with you. They've created this relationship with you. And it's kind of the common thing when you're in nature, when you're around another animal for a long time, you start to grow that, hey, we need to go and recreate. It's just our animal minds being animals. It'd be nice if women understood men's problems, and it'd be nice if men could understand women's problems when it comes to this whole sexual energy, anger, aggression, things like that. And maybe that's something we can dive into a little bit later on in the world of podcasting. But I think that we all need to be a little bit more understanding, and maybe I'm just talking to myself, but we need to be more understanding of what the other party is feeling when it comes to these super strong drivers of emotion.
I agree. And especially because sex itself is this beautiful thing, and it can be taken and made dirty. It can be taken and made in an abuse form. And so if you can see it for what it truly is, step out and detach yourself from whatever programming that's been around that for you, and look at it as it's not dirty. It's not this, taboo thing that you shouldn't be able to talk about. And it's really about pleasure. It really is about pleasure at the end of the day. You came to this world to experience all the pleasure that you can. I know that when my husband and I go, longer than our normal wait time between sex, I start to sad, and I need it. I just crave it. And so I make sure that we are on top of that. And take care. Now you're shaking your head at me during this episode.
No comment.
You're like, oh, married people having sex, whatever.
I was just saying because you said I get on top of that.
Well, yeah.
Or they've tuned out like 20 minutes ago. They're like, we're never coming back.
It's okay. I think it's hysterical, and I think if you blush, if you giggle, I think that's normal that's kind of how society has programmed us. It's just like this, in the bedroom kind of thing, but it's not. It's this wonderful energy, and so utilize that and be open to it and pleasure yourself and take it out with you.
I would say everybody should read Napoleon Hill's chapter 11 in his book, Think and Grow Rich. I think that's a great thing to read about the transmutation of sexual energy. I also firmly believe that every single person, whether you're single or you're in a relationship, whether it's serious or you're married or you're on the verge of a divorce or whatever the case might be, you should do the 5 love languages and you should do the Jaiya sexual test. And I think that if you can learn what drives you, because learning what your sexual energy is not only drives you at home with your spouse, but it also can drive you at work. And it'll start to show you why you start doing certain things, because you'll see what is your motivation, and it'll start helping you if you take time to actually think of situations that have caused anger or happiness or, frustration or shame. It'll help you see maybe why those happened, and maybe instead of having frustration or anger or shame around it, you'll realize, like, wait a minute, that's just who I am. 20% of the population, 20 to 25% of the population is just like you. So there's going to be a lot more people who are different than you, but there are still people that are very similar to you, and those people are going through the same thing. And as you learn more about yourself, you'll start to find people who are more similar to you, and you can start talking about it. It's just a really good thing.
Well, we're going to close out the show on that, and I want to thank Vikram for being so open, and you guys probably learned something about us that you didn't know. So be open to sex. Thanks for listening to The Odd Couple this week. Peace out, everyone.